as Pakistan bombs Kabul. On point 2 is on Italy's new bill that bans burqas and niqabs in public places. On point 3 is on the extent of India's mental health crisis on the occasion of World Mental Health Day. Now let's take a quick look at the headlines. Venezuela's Maria Corina Machado awarded Nobel Peace Prize for her work in promoting democracy and fighting dictatorship. Former opposition presidential candidate applauded as a key unifying figure against the brutal Venezuelan state. Chandigarh Police constitutes a 6-member SIT led by IGP Chandigarh Pushpendra Kumar to probe the alleged suicide of senior IPS officer Y. Puran Kumar. Kerala High Court asked team probing alleged tampering of gold at Sabrimala Temple to submit report within 6 weeks. This comes following allegations that over 4.5 kg of gold went missing during restoration work of idols in 2019. Supreme Court hints at relaxing absolute ban on firecrackers in Delhi. NCR may allow green crackers on Diwali. Bench led by Chief Justice B.R. Gavai reserves order. US Ambassador to India Sergio Gore is in Delhi to hold bilateral discussions. The Senate confirmed Gore's nomination as ambassador to India this week. Thousands of displaced Palestinians stream back towards abandoned homes after a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas went into effect and Israeli troops began pulling back. In a very significant development that strengthens New Delhi's ties with Kabul, India will reopen its embassy in Afghanistan, upgrading its existing technical mission to a full diplomatic presence, the first such move since the Taliban takeover. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar told Afghanistan's Foreign Minister Amir Muttaqi is visiting India from October 9th to 16th. He will also visit Agra as well as Deoband Seminary, the dominant school of jurisprudence in Afghanistan. Apart from this, he will also meet members of Afghan diaspora in India during his visit.
Closer cooperation between us contributes to your national development as well as regional stability and resilience. To enhance that, I am pleased to announce today the upgrading of India's technical mission in Kabul to the status of Embassy of India.
In his interaction with Muttaqi, Jaishankar said India has deep interest in Afghanistan's development and progress. India is fully committed to the sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of Afghan people, Jaishankar added. He said that New Delhi appreciates Afghanistan's sensitivity towards India's security concerns in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack. Reaffirming India-Afghanistan's long-standing partnership, he said, Muttaqi's visit marks an important step in advancing ties between Delhi and Kabul. He announced that additional flights will commence between Afghanistan and India and welcomed Muttaqi's invitation to Indian companies to explore mining opportunities in Afghanistan. During the meeting with External Affairs Minister Amir Muttaqi said India and Afghanistan should increase their engagement. He said Afghanistan won't allow any group to use its territory against other. He recalled that during the recent earthquake in Afghanistan, India was the first to respond with help and relief material. He underlined that Afghanistan looks at India as a close friend. He said Afghanistan and India have enjoyed civilizational and people-to-people ties for centuries. Muttaqi said that the current regime in Afghanistan wants a bilateral relationship with India based on mutual respect and people-to-people ties.
We always sought good relations with India. We will not allow any group to threaten anyone else or use the territory of Afghanistan against others.
Addressing the media, Muttaqi spoke about the US sanctioning India's Shah Bahar port in Iran and the implication of closing the route on both Afghanistan and India.
शाहबहार के हवाले से तो एक अच्छा रास्ता और अच्छा फुर्सत है कि उससे इस्तेफादा होना चाहिए। हम और हिंदुस्तान दोनों कोशिश करें कि ये रास्ते में जितना भी मुश्किलात है, जितना भी रुकावटें हैं, उसको दूर हो जाए, क्योंकि इसी रास्ते में अमेरिका का भी कुछ पाबंदियां आया हैं। तो हम और हिंदुस्तान दोनों मिलकर अमेरिका से भी बातचीत करता है और अपने आपस में भी बातचीत करता है, और इस रास्ते को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इस्तेफादा करना और इस इस्तेफादे में लाना, ये दोनों ममालिक के एक ज़रूरत है।
Asked about his visit to Deoband and Pakistan's allegation that Afghanistan exports terrorism, Muttaqi said that those who make baseless allegations should back them with evidence.
देवबंद तो इस्लामी उलूम का एक बहुत बड़ा मरकज़ है, तारीख़ी मरकज़ है। देवबंद का अकाबरीन उलमा और अफ़गानिस्तान के उलमा के दरमियान बहुत देरीना ताल्लुकात है, और यही मसलक वाले लोग उलमा अफ़गानिस्तान में भी है, और देवबंद को हम एक इल्मी और एक रूहानी मरकज़ समझता है। तो हम ये चाहता है कि वहाँ पे असातिज़ा और तलबा के साथ मुलाकात हो जाए, और ये जो देरीना ताल्लुकात है वो फिर ताज़ा हो जाए और आना जाना शुरू हो जाए।
This visit is happening when Pakistan launched airstrikes in Kabul. Pak jets launched an attack on Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan camps in Kabul. The strikes were targeted at eliminating TTP chief Noor Wali Mehsud, who is leading the organization since 2018. He subsequently said that he survived. There was an audio, and the Pakistan minister also spoke on the issue of attacking Kabul. But you know, the larger issue here is that this happened when Muttaqi is on the Indian soil, when the talks are happening between India and Taliban. And this is happening at a point of time when the relationship between Taliban and Pakistan is also deteriorating, with Islamabad's deportation of thousands of Afghan refugees further straining the bilateral ties between Islamabad and Kabul. And the ties too have been strained because Taliban administration does not acknowledge Durand Line. But there was one more controversial statement made. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif said that Afghans have been loyal to India in the past and will continue to remain so, even though they have always stood against Pakistan. So as I said, one of the biggest triggers for tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan is the Durand Line. The 2,640-kilometer boundary between the two countries is the result of an agreement between Sir Mortimer Durand, a secretary of the British Indian government, and Abdur Rahman Khan, Emir of Afghanistan in 1893, a pure colonial legacy. Pakistan has long sought to formalize the line as a border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. However, no Afghan government has ever accepted the Durand Line as an international border. But the fact of the matter is that Hindustan is a civilizational state, Afghanistan is also a civilizational state, and Pakistan is the result of an accident. That's the fact of the matter. And that is why areas which Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan feel belongs to them, which is parts of Baluchistan and parts of what is known today as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Now, on this issue, I am joined by Lieutenant General Arun Sahani, President Information Security Council of India, Dr. Shanti Marriott D'Souza, Founder and Executive Director, Mantriya Institute for Strategic Studies, and Professor Swaran Singh, Center for International Studies. Thank you all of you for joining me. There are a lot of issues at hand. This is the Taliban too we are dealing with. And probably this breakthrough is very surprising for a lot of people, because for 25 years we supported and helped Northern Alliance, but in diplomacy interests are permanent, not what you like or dislike. So opening comment for Professor Swaran Singh, what we witnessed today in Delhi is it a breakthrough, is it a reset, and has India done a different form of a diplomatic breakthrough where in particular decades where there was an overemphasis on the human rights issues?
Yes, I agree with you, Karthikeya. There's a clear difference between Taliban 1.0 and Taliban 2.0. not just India, even Taliban has been very cautious, very pragmatic in making commentaries on India. And therefore, I think that pragmatism is what is underlining this, what I would call a groundbreaking initiative of inviting Muttaqi and also announcing that the technical mission is going to be upgraded into embassy, and at the same time announcing a whole range of developmental initiatives with specific details that India is going to revive and restart and rebuild, which is something which obviously has done a lot of cost calculations and thinking beforehand in this. What is different here is that Pakistan, which was originally the kind of creator of Taliban in 1990s, in Taliban 2.0 has major difficulties with Taliban. Border has been often seeing violence. We are just now talking of some blasts in even Kabul, whether they are air attacks. Of course, General Chaudhry of Pakistani military spokesperson has not denied or accepted any of this. But I think a clear pragmatic approach to see that India's not just relations with Taliban 2.0, but also overall India's regional diplomacy or strategic interests are pursued very carefully. In which case, engaging with the Taliban is very significant right now, particularly for various new things. Pakistan is looking at it as a zero-sum game. United States is wanting Bagram airport back. United States is closing India's opportunities in Chabahar, for example, by lifting the waiver on India's investments, on sanctions on India's investments in Chabahar. So multiple things have changed the reality today, but it's not just now. Last 4 years, both sides have shown enormous pragmatism. India was providing humanitarian assistance all these years. Now we want to institutionalize that, make it more predictable in terms of relationship. Taliban sees its advantage in opening up to the outside world, particularly starting trade with India, getting opportunities of consular services, of medical treatment in India, or medical institutions that India has already lined up, that India is going to start in Afghanistan, not just in Kabul, but various provinces. 20 ambulances are already being delivered to them. So it's a far more pragmatic approach to engaging with each other, driven by the strategic interest of both sides.
Okay. Dr. D'Souza, my question is that this visit has happened at a time when Pakistan has bombed Kabul. Is it a signal? Can it be wished away as a coincidence? Or has it happened as part of an intent?
I think it's more of intent, because as Afghanistan, particularly under the Taliban, is getting closer to India, there's definitely nervousness in Islamabad. And the fact that they use this technique at the point when the Taliban foreign minister is in India is surely a signal that they don't want India and Afghanistan to have the close relationship, which will be in a way difficult for Islamabad to accept. Because as you have rightly pointed out before, Taliban has been a protege of the Islamabad establishment, particularly the ISI. So this is a game which has gone on in Afghanistan for long. And Pakistan has always used Afghanistan as a counterpoint towards India in terms of finding its strategic depth. And now as things are evolving between the Taliban and India, it's surely sending a lot of nervousness on the Islamabad side.
Okay. General Sahni, what's the big picture? And your opening comments on the bombing that has happened in Kabul. I think that's the first time Pakistanis have actually operated their planes in Afghanistan. Last time when the battle was happening in Kandahar, when the Taliban was surging, they never crossed the Afghan airspace. They used it as a sort of a preventive mechanism lest their helicopters of the US supported Afghan army deploys their Apaches. But they never crossed it. But this time they have crossed into Kabul.
So I think, Kartikan, firstly, good evening and good to be on your panel again. May I just say that I think what has been stated earlier by the other two panelists, I don't disagree with the fact that I think it's time to be realistic of your relationship in a world which is extremely turbulent. And South Asia, I think nothing seems to be going our way as it stands today. There seems to be various forces which are at play, whether it's internal or external, which is creating kind of an upheaval. So it's the right time to reach out. And I think we have to start accepting the fact that whatever be the cultural and civilizational methodologies that countries follow, we'll have to accept it. We are seeing that in Syria. I mean, look at it, that group man suddenly changed his name and he's addressing the UN General Assembly. So I think things have changed, and we have to accept. So I think in the larger perspective is the right direction that we are moving. Secondly, I think whether it's the signaling, yes, of course, there is no doubt about it. The timing has been such that his presence here itself is not very comfortable as far as Pakistan is concerned. It wants to give a signal, listen, we can reach out and hit you wherever it is. And that new normal which has been created in the world, not because of Op Sindoor only, but across the world. I mean, what Israel did with Qatar, with what it's done in Syria, what it's done across the thing, it's become new normal. This indirect engagements of trying to take out elements which you think have not been supportive of your country and seem to be inimical, has somehow got accepted. So in the new normal of the world of reaching out across in an indirect manner without physical occupation, the non-kinetic, the kinetic engagements or a standoff engagements has now become the order of the day. So I think Pakistan is showing that irrespective of what might have been the general impression in South Asia of how we got the better of them, they're still a very potent force. Today they are reaching out to they've got both, I think, the China and US being balanced beautifully with whatever kind of marketing strategies that they've adopted. So they seem to be on a high as far as post-Sindoor is concerned. So I think they want to tell them, hey, listen guys, we've got the support of the rest of the world. We have the support of the two big players who matter in this part of the world. And I'm sorry, if you do not play ball with us and start running around to our neighbors and other people, we will take the opportunity to hit you. So I think it's a mixed bag. But I think we'll have to accept it. This is the new normal. We are adopting it and the world is adopting it. So that is par for the course as far as the methodology is concerned.
Okay.
How powerful Pakistan is debatable. I'd leave it at that.
Well, Professor Swaran Singh, do you think that Afghanistan is still a battleground for empires with, like Americans wanting a background? If you look at it, 3 empires got decimated in Afghanistan. The British, that ended up with the Treaty of Ganmak, 4,500 soldiers went, 12,000 followers, 2 survived. 1848. The Soviet Union, I mean to say, the way they crossed the bridge from Mazar-e-Sharif back into then their Union territories, very well encapsulated by the photographs of the retreat. And the Americans, I think that was the most rushed retreat. It reminded people of what happened in Vietnam, the Saigon, that famous helicopter photograph. It was similar to what happened in Saigon. So do you still think that Afghanistan is a battleground for empires today, sir?
2 things. One, you have beautifully brought out the historical examples of how none of the major powers in history have been able to really stay and control Afghanistan. That is partly because of its own terrain, its own sociological forces, clans and so other things. But it's interesting to see that President Trump, who came to the second term with a clear message that he's not going to send boots on the ground anywhere, given the experience in Afghanistan particularly. Indeed, that can be said of all military operations of United States. Wherever US forces have gone, they have come back after creating bigger chaos. But now to talk about Bagram, and I'm happy to see that Muttaqi has already responded in his press conference to this, that Afghan people will not accept any foreign forces on their soil, and therefore it's not going to happen. So United States will have to look at opportunities maybe in Pakistan in that sense. But here I think India, I do want to underline, when it is taking a kind of initiative which we are calling groundbreaking, has its own risks. I mean, after all, Taliban is, still working on being very cohesive force even after 4 years. So Muttaqi's promises...
That's a very important point you have made, sir. That's a very important...
So in terms of promises being made here are not only going to be, having challenges of putting them on the ground when he goes back, but also Afghanistan's Taliban 2.0's engagement with the regional players. For example, China and Pakistan have tried their best to keep India out. Of course, Russia has always made India part of the conversations on Afghanistan. And now this direct connect with the Taliban in that sense, I think is making India a much more clear stakeholder and player in how future of Afghanistan by regional powers need to be sort of thought of and organized.
I'll take your assessment forward, sir. I'll take your assessment forward. Taliban Taliban 1 was far more homogeneous. It was Kandahar Shura. Taliban 2 is Quetta Shura, it is Kandahar Shura, it is Haqqani network, then you have TTP, then you had some part of ISIS Khorasan supporting them, another not supporting them. So Dr. D'Souza, my question is, who do you deal with when you talk to Kabul? Because there are multiple factions operating in Kabul unlike previously. It's far more heterogeneous.
I think it's a gross misunderstanding that it's very heterogeneous. It's true that it's not as monolithic as it was during Taliban 1.2. There are various factions, but the Amir holds absolute control of the group. For last 4 years, you heard of a lot of this, factions and divisions leading to fragmentation and breaking of Taliban. That really doesn't occur. So there is control, but there are divisions in terms of administration. I was in Afghanistan last month and I was talking to different people. So you do see a difference between what's happening in Kabul and Kandahar in terms of running of the day-to-day administrative mechanisms. But on the ideology, in terms of the control the Emir has, I think it's very important to understand that he has absolute control. So when it comes on the rights of women, on the girls' education, those issues are not flexible. But what is flexible is how do you run the state apparatus. So they are basically running them.
I mean, so you got to deal with them, madam. They didn't allow women journalists to participate in the press conference today. A lot of protest has taken place by women journalists who cover MEA, and this was a press conference by invite. Now, I mean, so you can take a moral position on this. But the second thing is that you got to do business with them. So it has happened right in front of us.
Right. So I think the Taliban needs time. So I was in an interaction with Minister Muttaqi, and we did have these discussions on various fronts in terms of what the foreign policy of the Taliban is. What are they looking on the regional cooperation? What are they looking in terms of balancing and the economic-centered foreign policy principles? I think they're very clear of what their position is. As you mentioned, they know that they're in a critical crossroads of Asia, and they are looking at exploring all the opportunities to get the maximum benefit. So there is this pushback when it comes to women. And what has happened is the West keeps pushing forward issues of women and human rights all the time on their face, and the Taliban just reject it. So I think we have to give them some time to gradually socialize into what the international community is. The more they come out, the more they interact with people, they interact with India and other countries like Muttaqi has also gone to Moscow. I think there'll be gradual socialization and mainstreaming which will occur. We can't expect them to be coming straight out of the mountains and from the madrasas to be like rest of the world. So I think that understanding has been lacking by the West. So the second point is when you look at the whole way the administration is run today, it's very much running on the Republican model, but based on Sharia. Now, many people would have problem with that, but I think we have to give that rope to the Afghans to decide what kind of ideology they want, what kind of customs and norms they want to follow, because it's ultimately their choice. Now, when it comes to people, it's about having them participate more in the governance system, more in terms of administration. They're looking for people, like I went to the National Development Corporation, they're moving more towards self-sufficiency. Yes. They want more investment in the mining sector, infrastructure sector, dams, and medium and small enterprises. So there are steps generally now. If you look at what happened in the last 2 decades of international intervention, there were certain ideas.
Okay, let me ask this question to you, madam. You were saying that you were in a meeting with Muttaqi. So my question to you is, interests are permanent in diplomacy. I mean, say other things don't count. So I would like to know, as a journalist, which are the areas where Indian and Taliban interests are actually converging?
They are converging in points of the geopolitics which is occurring at the moment.
In concrete way, where are they converging? Is it minerals? Is it exploration? Is it defense?
It could be, one is the geopolitical reconfiguration which is occurring, which is very important because I think India needs its strategic space. The Taliban need greater partners and greater engagement and recognition. The second is inside Afghanistan, they need more help on economic development, given the fact that they face sanctions. They don't have money coming from anywhere and they have to generate their own revenue. So they're looking at mining, they're looking at agriculture, they're looking at markets, exports. So if you look at even the flights which were there, between India and Afghanistan, particularly from Kabul to Delhi, have reduced tremendously. Most of the traffic is going to Dubai. So I think they have to look at helping them. One is in terms of the geopolitics, in terms of getting their own independence and maintaining their state independence. And they are very clear about how to maintain their independence. They have done it. They have a policy called bitarafy, which they used in the Cold War. And they're kind of looking at that policy in terms of balancing various relations and also looking at regional cooperation. But they're more economic centric. They want to move from geopolitics to geoeconomics. And that is the emphasis at the moment, because Afghanistan needs to have its own revenue. It needs employment opportunities for the people. It needs to run the state machinery when the international communities impose sanctions on them. So giving humanitarian assistance doesn't really help, because what happens is the money actually gets siphoned off or is not reaching the people where it should be reached. And thereby it creates problems in terms of aid delivery, but it doesn't build institutional mechanisms where Afghans can take charge of their own affairs.
But that's madam, that's the harshest part, that even the 20 years of American intervention, billions of dollars they spent, it just didn't reach the ground. It got siphoned off by the rich people, whose children are studying in America, expat Afghans, but didn't reach the common Afghan. General Sahani, my question remains the same. We are not a country where we put boots on grounds. Our boots on grounds are only through United Nations peacekeeping services like Congo and other areas. So in terms of hard geopolitics, where is the interest converging? What are we trying to prevent by having this reset? That's my question 1 to you. And the second one, which you must attempt, sir, is this strain between Taliban and Pakistan for real?
Let me put it like this. I think, I totally agree with what Shanti was trying to sort of build out, that you need to give them space. They need to be given to be able to re-establish, and the geopolitics, geoeconomics issue that she has flagged. Let me put it like this. How does it help us today? I think the greatest strength today that we have is the fact that he's made a statement that we will not allow the land to be utilized for issues related to the foreign elements or the inimical elements which are supported by Pakistan to use our area for attacks in different countries. So I think the issue is that. The second thing I keep seeing, which is actually of support to us, is the fact that the Pakistan military today is totally embroiled in its fight against currently the Tira Valley that is going on. If you recollect in Swat, what is it? It's against the TTP. And I think the relationships and I would say the ethnic linkages that exist between the Taliban as it stands today, 2.0, the TTP are good signs for us. It's keeping the Pak military embroiled in whatever it is. And I was just seeing the peace index today and in one of them they were talking about which are the countries most affected by terrorism. I think Pakistan is number 2 after Afghanistan. But I would look at it that today when I look at the spectrum, the kind of violence that existed in Afghanistan seems to have come down over the last 4 years. There is a certain amount of stability. Maybe the norms that exist as far as societal viewpoints are concerned on women, children, education is not similar to what the rest of the developed world looks at and what maybe even meet our aspirations. But I think security issues, having them on our side ensures that Pakistan remains. The issue of Pakhtunkhwa, which comes up, the KP, the Gilgit-Baltistan, the Baluchistan, which of course is in a certain stage of turmoil, ensures that the developmental initiatives which Pakistan wants to sell by giving Pasni to US, by looking at minerals being developed in these areas. I'm sorry, that's not happening if the security doesn't change. So I think keeping Taliban on the having a relationship which ensures that the security imbroglio that exists for Pakistan continues in the manner that it does. It ensures that they do not have the space for especially after Sindoor 1.0. What is the reason for Tira? They realize that the people like LAT, who are more Salafist and Wahhabist, need space away from the borders to be able to carry out their training. They're trying to clear the areas in Swat and KP to try and allow training areas of the LAT and other groups to move into that particular area, give them greater depth as far as India's borders are concerned. So I think today, when we get onto the space of keeping relationship with them, the security paradigm is undoubtedly positive as far as I say it is plus for us if we remain in relation. And I think looking at the way we've developed our projects, I think we've always had a people-to-people relationship with Afghanistan. Unfortunately, I was told that in one of the talks today itself, He's again talked about looking at connectivity through Wagah to be taken, but we know that that can't happen. I mean, the current problems that we have with Pakistan, the connectivity through Pak is not really going to be realistic. And today with Chhabha coming under flak, you've got the Zaranj, which is again the Zaranj link, it's also currently under flak. So I think a relationship with Taliban, accepting and giving them space at face value, being more realistic is the right direction as far as we are concerned. And I would look at, and may I just add one thing on Baghran, just quick one. I thought there was a lot of opposition in America itself when it was decided to vacate Baghran. That was that time a large number of the military leadership said that what we have achieved in Afghanistan in the last, say, global war on terrorism that continued over a decade had reached a stage when you look at the best situation for any army that has foot on grounds in CT operations. They were having one casualty a year. That was the record in the last 2 years before they evacuated from there.
I think Americans lost it now. But coming back to India, Professor Swing, there is also one other aspect. Please put that in perspective. And I think this is very, very important. Muttaqi's visit to Deoband. Deoband is a very prominent Islamic school of jurisprudence like Barelvi's. Allowing him to go there, and one of the, I remember more than 2 decades back when I went there, I was told that one of the gates of Deoband at the south was built by Zahir Shah. Entire gate was financed by that, and it marks the southern end of the boundary of the Deoband seminary. So please put that in historical perspective, why that is important and why is he being allowed to visit the seminary.
I think obviously the request of where he wants to go in exact 9 to 16th of
Taj Mahal
October.
I can understand, sir. It's okay. Everyone wants to go and see Taj Mahal. But he's also going to Deoband, which is a very important, it's like Al-Azhar.
That is what I am underlining in terms of the risks that India also is taking in doing this groundbreaking kind of relationship with Taliban, because the kind of choices he's making during his visit here, and the press conference you mentioned, which did not allow women journalists to come. And in that sense, I think India definitely is taking risk. After 4 years, the most important thing Taliban is looking for is breaking away from isolation. None of the countries are recognizing it. Some of them are engaging it right now. And I can understand Nishanti is mentioning of they need more time. But their ideology fundamentally is not in tune with much of the world right now. So their policies on women's rights, on minorities' rights, press freedom and so on could potentially become much more radicalized if the internal cohesion, which she says is gradually improving, does not really go very far, and tensions with Pakistan grow much worse. So therefore, definitely India is also taking a calculated risk in this of its reputation, for example, of taking a step forward and inviting him to come to New Delhi on a long 6-day visit here. So definitely, Taliban is reformed Taliban compared to 1990s. It's more pragmatic, but it's fundamentally...
That's a contested word, at least in the Western press, sir. That's a contested word. Dr. D'Souza, is there something called reformed Taliban? A lot of editorials have been written on that.
Well, I think I have a differing view. I think we are measuring the Taliban by Western standards, and Taliban has remained as it is. I mean, there is a difference between Taliban 1.0 and Taliban 2.0 in the sense that Taliban now are more pragmatic, and they know they're learning the ropes of realpolitik and foreign policy. But I don't think they're reformed in that sense. They have their ideology, which has been very firm in terms of Sharia. And the fact that they're visiting Deoband is actually a welcome step, because if you look at their edicts and the harsh laws they have imposed, I think Deoband doesn't really follow. And there is a Deoband connect, because Taliban, as you know, Talib means a religious student, and they had this whole movement which mushroomed from the Deobandi school. So there is a connect. So I think India is doing a great service by reconnecting them to their original ideology, which was lost during the Soviet and American intervention, where they mixed around with other Salafi groups from Saudi Arabia and West Asia, and they got lost somewhere in the woods. So I think it's just reconnecting them to their original roots, which will bring them back to understanding what real Deoband is. So I think this is a kind of step which might help in bring moderation in Taliban. But I think reform is a far-fetched word, because I think the West expects a lot from the Taliban, and we tend to see them from our lens. We don't see them from their own cultural and social context. And as I said before, they have been fighting insurgency. They lived in the mountains. They didn't know what the rest of the world is. So now, as they're gradually socializing and getting to know what other forms of Islam are and reconnecting to Deoband, I think it's a great step.
Thank you all of you for this riveting conversation. I think there'll be more to do, because Muttaqi will be in India for a couple of days, and more statements, and we will get even deeper insight into what are the other areas of collaboration which India and Taliban, Afghanistan's government, will collaborate on. Thank you. So this was on point 1, but don't go away, because after on point 2, after the break, the on point 2 is on the Italy's proposed ban on burqa and hijab after a short break.
नई गाड़ी देनी पड़ेगी
हमें भी।
शोरूम खोला जल्दी।
हम तक महंगा इंश्योरेंस बेचने की पूरी कोशिश हो सकती है, जबरदस्ती।
कौन करेगा जबरदस्ती? खोड़ दूंगा इधर मैं। रिलैक्स कमलाकर, नई गाड़ी के लिए हम एको कार इंश्योरेंस ही लेंगे।
फेयर प्राइस, कम प्रीमियम।
बात खत्म।
कार का एक्शन हीरो एको।